Hello and welcome to Cutting the Ball in the Post-Truth Apocalypse. I'm Ben, I'm hanging out with Mike.
Hello.
And Claire.
Hey.
Today we're going to talk about Operation Cone of Power, which is basically British witches versus Nazis.
Alright.
Apologies to anyone who was expecting Rendlesham, right? But I saw this in the week and I was like, I really want to talk about that. That's pretty cool. And a familiar friend of the show comes back at the end. Do you know who that is?
Mr. Crowley, probably.
Did he say it properly?
Mr. Crowley.
Mr. Crowley comes back at the end. God, I'm going to do everything myself. But before we get into that, let's thank some new and returning listeners. Let's start with Mould in the United Kingdom. Sends up to a lovely place to live. Auckland, New Zealand, Newark, New Jersey. Looking forward to that Sopranos movie set in Newark.
Is it a movie? I thought it was a new series.
No, it's The Many Saints of Newark. It's a Sopranos prequel movie.
Oh, is it a movie? Is
I
it?
believe it is.
Oh, I thought it was a series.
Pretty sure it's a movie, but I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure a movie. Santiago in Chile, Dallas, Texas, Vienna, Austria, Nairobi in Kenya, wow, Honmachi in Japan. Do yourself a favour, mate. Don't listen to the Om Shinrikyo episodes because I butcher every single Japanese pronunciation in that, and you will not like me. Singapore, Lima, Peru, Cali, United Kingdom, Salida, Colorado.
Keeley, I think it is.
Keeley, whatever. Oh, hang on. Zapopan in Mexico. I love that place. I love that one. I live there. Liberty, Missouri, Seattle, Washington, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Chicago, Illinois, Brussels into the top 10, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Yeah.
Zaragoza in Spain, Bengaluru in India, Atlanta, Georgia, Madrid, Spain, Boardman, Oregon. You've been away a while, hello. Ashburn, Virginia, you too. Farmington, I haven't seen before, Missouri, and Guadalajara, Spain. Thank you very much for listening. It boosts my own fragile ego, as I'm sure it boosts everybody else's in this room.
Not really.
Well,
I keep telling him trying to destroy it. He never listens to me, does he?
No. It's like a broken record. He says it every week.
Oh no.
it's catchphrase.
It's a catchphrase.
Yeah. Alright then, let's start with a bit of a definition of modern Wicca, although it could be argued that Cone of Power predates modern Wicca, but it was allegedly, the operation involved the guy who set up modern Wicca, so he must have drawn it from the past a little bit. So, Wicca, also termed pagan witchcraft, is a modern pagan religion. Scholars of religion categorise it as both a new religious movement and part of the occultist stream of Western esotericism. Yeah.
That's good, yeah.
It was developed in England during the first half of the 20th century and was introduced to the public in 1954 by Gerald Gardner, a retired British civil servant. It draws upon a diverse set of ancient pagan and 20th century Hermetic motifs for its theological structure and ritual practices, with no central authority figure.
He sounds pretty central. If he's
Yeah.
introducing it.
It was literally, there was him and a high priestess, and as soon as they kind of went, no one bothered replacing them.
It's decentralised.
Yeah, each sort of little sect is referred to as a tradition within its own, with its own organisational structure and level of centralisation. Due to its decentralised nature, there is some disagreement over what actually constitutes Wicca. Some traditions, collectively referred to as British traditional Wicca, strictly follow a Gardner's model, whereas others go with new eclectic traditions.
Okay. It's duotheistic. Worships a god and a goddess.
That's nice. The horned god and the triple goddess. I mean, they all sort of... They tried to link it back in with British Druidism and that, because British Druidism was wiped off the map by the Romans. The Druids never wrote anything down. So all you had was some
Oral
word of
text.
mouth, oral history, and if you wipe out all the people who have... Funny enough, Claire,
Practiced it, yeah.
you were in Anglesey. That was the centre of the Druidic faith
What was it?
in Britain. It was a sacred isle. So the Druids had all their groves and everything, and that's where the Druids were trained. And
they were highly inbred.
Was it?
Anglesey, yeah.
well, the Druids could come from all over.
Well, yeah, I'm just... Because Anglesey was separated from the
Isolated,
mainland and
yeah.
isolated. I mean,
It would have been.
yeah, till the bridge came. There's a bridge in it that connects them.
Yeah, there's a couple of bridges there.
There's an RAF base you've been there for years and all, hasn't there?
Yeah, I went past that the other day. I went on trip to the beach, listeners.
Alright, that's Wicket. Obviously, it's a massive thing. That's kind of trying to sum it up in a nutshell. But we're
How
not
many
gonna-
followers?
Their followers.
How many followers?
Oh, that's a good
We're
question.
talking millions, hundreds of thousands?
I'd imagine a few thousand, maybe 100,000 somewhere. I don't know. I know people don't tend to own up to it. Something they do in private.
There's a whole chapter dedicated to sex magic.
Well, they're always sky-clad if they do a ceremony. That's naked underneath the sky. That's how the ceremonies are performed. So I'd imagine there is some sex magic going on.
It would have been pretty cool to be a druid, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it would have.
They get long capes and robes, don't they?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's sort of linked in with paganism, and it shares a lot of common ground. You know? Hundreds of thousands of practicing Wiccans around the globe, 2016. Maybe 800,000.
Okay, not that many then.
So, yeah, but a lot of people wouldn't own up to it, because it's considered like...
Oh, yeah, in some countries it's probably...
You know, you can probably get stoned to death
Yeah.
for it in some countries. And because, you know, you've got the pentagram as part of the whole setup, haven't you? A lot of people see it as Satanism and then more bad Satanism.
Still not going to be more than 5 million, is it?
No.
Oh, no, no. Anyway, let's go on to Operation Cone of Power. When British witches attacked Adolf Hitler. Personally.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. So it was the summer of 1940, just 3 weeks after the narrow escape by the British armies at Dunkirk, and the United Kingdom was braced for the onslaught of a threatened German invasion. And it was. It was a bit shit, to say the least.
Got our asses handed to us.
Yeah.
You know, we'd left all the tanks, all the heavy equipment. We were struggling to give people rifles. The Home Guard were using spears. You
How
know.
many did they capture? Quite a few, wasn't it?
No, most of the British Army got away. There
Okay.
were. I think there was about. There must have been 10,000 captured, maybe more. A lot of the French army was captured. They still got 300,000 French off the beach as well.
Oh, right, okay.
But all the heavy equipment, some of the best troops as well. You know, the Highland Division was forced to surrender. They were considered one of the best divisions. They were cut off. So, on the nation's south coast, one of many areas in danger of invasion from the sea, towns and villages were transformed by sandbags, barricades and barbed wire into coastal redoubts where volunteers kept watch on the sea and the sky. The Battle of Britain was yet to reach its peak, but the drone of enemy planes could be heard flying overhead. In the town of Highcliffe-on-Sea, the story goes, a secretive group of witches and spiritual seekers resolved to do what they could to defend their country. It's said they arranged to meet in an ancient forest before midnight on August 1st, 1940.
Already alarm bells.
Why?
It's said. Who said? Who said that?
Gardner in his book.
Oh, okay.
But it's disputed, and we'll get to that at the end.
Okay.
It's disputed by another source. August 1st, 1940, the eve of Lammas Day, a harvest festival and one of the greatest Sabbats of the neo-pagan religion known as Wicca. They are said to have staged a magical assault on the mind of Adolf Hitler in distant Berlin by means of a ritual that became known by the mock military codename Operation Cone of Power. It's pretty metal. According to Gerald Gardner, the retired British civil servant who founded modern Wicca, the magical assault was based on secret knowledge passed down through generations of English witches. In his 1954 book Witchcraft Today, Gardner wrote that the invasions have been turned back twice by magic in English history.
Were they sleeping in 1066?
Didn't have time. I suppose actually, you know, thinking about it, the Spanish Armada was quite a long drawn-out affair, and so was Napoleon's thing, and so was Hitler's. The Normans just kind of turned up, didn't they? Because they didn't have time. So the first in 1588, when the Spanish Armada became discouraged after being scattered by storms, and then in 1805, when Napoleon called off his planned invasion of England.
Yeah. Storms, a storm coming, it must be the witches.
It could be argued that, you know, the Royal Navy being the powerful force that it was also helped in those matters, especially with Napoleon. Because after Trafalgar, after they lost Trafalgar in 1805, they were like, wow, British sea power is just actually really too good and we've just lost most of our navy. So let's just give up on that and invade Russia instead.
That went well.
Suicidal, wouldn't it, really?
Yeah, you can't control the channel when you're trying to invade England. You've lost already, haven't you?
Yeah.
So, an English folktale relates that the British admiral at the time of the Armada, Francis Drake, joined a group of sea witches. I don't know what a sea witch is, but it sounds pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
Is it like a sea hag?
I hope so.
Like Grendel?
I'm hoping that it's just like a bunch of old wizened hags with cloaks, and they're like, yes, we can create storms. And that's what they do, and he got involved with it. Well, why not? If you've got that in your locker,
Use it, yeah.
use it.
Didn't the Nazis have witches then?
They had a cult and a cult department, but again, we'll get to that at the end.
Oh, okay.
So, yes, he joined these group of sea witches at a headland called Devil's Point, near the naval port of Plymouth, to attack the approaching Spanish ships with a magical storm. It is said that on foggy days at Devil's Point, the disembodied chants of Drake and the witches can still be heard. And, in the early 19th century, Gardner wrote, another group of English witches cast spells to deter Napoleon. I love it. This, just reaches out and grabs you by the nuts.
Witchcraft Today, it sounds a bit newspapery, doesn't it?
That was the book he wrote, which kind of founded Wicca, yeah, Witchcraft Today. But no, I love this. I'm a bit of a fan of the occult and the esoteric. And I'm not an expert by any stretch of imagination. I've never tried ritual magic with a K. I've had a look at it and I've tried to listen to people talking about it, but it blows my fucking head. I have no idea what's going on. I am a spiritual void. But I like the idea that people think that you can alter people's minds or the universe to your will by using
Of course,
ancient, powerful symbols
Who doesn't want to think that?
and ritual
It's very tempting to want to think that.
and butt sex.
But is there any evidence? There's just no evidence for it, is there?
But the magic is in the butt. That's what Crowley said.
Well, just because you're chanting sort of bad things towards... were they chanting them at Napoleon?
I don't know what they said to Napoleon, but...
Or just chanting...
But did they really create a magical storm? I mean, come on. Storms happen all the time.
They did, but they often happen at very fortuitous times. The Armada, the kamikaze wind that stopped the Mongol invasion of Japan. They've made history, storms have.
Yeah, and how many battles where it didn't make a difference? Probably a lot more.
Just be some low pressure, won't it?
Just coincidence, innit?
Yeah.
God, you're so close-minded. So Gardner claimed that similar rituals were used in 1940 against a Nazi leader by a secretive coven of witches who lived around Highcliffe. And I quote, witches did cast spells to stop Hitler landing after France fell, he wrote in Witchcraft Today. They met, they raised a great cone of power and directed the thought at Hitler's brain, you cannot cross the sea. Just as their great-grandfathers had done to Boney and their remoter forefathers had done to the Spanish Armada. Oh, I love that. I'm not saying they stopped Hitler, Gardner added. All I say is that I saw a very interesting ceremony performed with the intention of putting a certain idea into his mind. And though all the invasion barges were ready, the fact is that Hitler never even tried to come.
He did. He tried to soften us up by air first, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, the major thing to take away from this is that Hitler couldn't invade Britain without getting air superiority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once he hasn't got that, he
I
can't.
put that down to the brave Spitfire pilots.
Hurricane pilots and
Yeah.
from all nationalities, because he wasn't
a lot of Polish.
Polish. Oh man, Polish, South African. I think there was a Hawaiian dude.
Oh, wow.
New Zealand, Czechs, Poles, French, Dutch, Canadians,
Australians,
Indians, Jamaicans. There might have been a couple of, I think, as well.
Gurkhas.
No, we just used the Gurkhas because they were scary with knives. Because a Gurkha would probably fly the plane, but then jump out of the plane with his knife and try and stab the other pilot to death. Because they're mad. I'm very glad they're on our side.
Yeah. We should treat them better.
We should do. You're absolutely right. We should do. They should have full citizenship rights and the same pension as every other single British soldier who served. The fact that when Harry went to Afghanistan, they didn't give him guardsmen as bodyguards, they gave him Gurkhas, I think speaks volumes.
Mm-hmm.
The British author and Wiccan Philip Heselton, who has researched Operation Cone of Power for Witchfather, his biography of Gardner and several other books, thinks that 17 people took part in the Lammas Eve ritual in 1940, including members of a local family said to be descended from witches. They were joined by several Highcliffe residents like Gardner, who had met through a local dramaturgical group. A drama group then, I'm guessing, called the Rosicrucian Curatona Fellowship, which had links to older esoteric groups such as the Co-Masons, a form of Freemasonry that admitted women, and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, one of the oldest magical societies in the country. And who was a member of that, to begin with?
Mr. Crowley.
Right.
Yeah. I like the fact there's a bunch of Freemasons that admit women.
Well, I don't think there should be any secretive societies.
I thought you said for a second, I honestly thought you said, I honestly don't think women should be led in the Freemasons. I thought that was where you were going. I was like, whoa!
They don't bloody belong there. They should be in the kitchen.
Do you think they'll make me a Mason soon?
No.
Oh, well. Well, okay then. Thought being there in local politics, I thought I might get inducted into the Freemasons.
Well, maybe.
Well, okay. So Heselton believes the group met in the New Forest, a few miles north of Highcliffe, near an ancient gallows tree called the Naked Man, and made their way by foot to the site selected for the ritual near a woodland called Ferny Knap Enclosure. In a forest clearing surrounded by pines, Heselton wrote in Witchfather, they marked out a witch's circle, the stage for their magical efforts. In place of a traditional bonfire, perhaps a fear of being spotted by enemy aircraft, a valid concern. Mm-hmm. Remember, the entire country is on blackout. Or local air defence wardens who will come along and tell you to put the damn fire out and arrest you, probably, or take you to the police. A flashlight or shuttered lantern may have been placed to the east of the witch's circle in the direction of Berlin as a focus for their magical assaults. Naked or sky-clad, as Wiccans say, they began to dance in a spiralling pattern around the field, around the circle, building up to the communal ecstatic state that they believe can control magical forces. So I can assume that you're dancing around, you're nude, you're doing chanting, you're getting worked up.
Yep.
And at the climax of all of that, that's when the power is transmitted through that cone of power. It enables you to believe you can control magical forces.
They all just like, flop on the ground when it's all like, over and done.
There may well have been a few orgasms involved as well.
Like a few cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, is that good for you? Do you feel that good for you, Adolf? As they danced, their chants echoed the magical formula Gardner said had been used in the earlier ceremonies against the Armada and Napoleon, a psychological assault on the mind of Adolf Hitler that they hoped would weaken his resolve to invade England. So you got it's the same thing. Do not cross the sea. Do not cross the sea. It has power. It's been used. It's successful before.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
God, man. Historians have found no direct evidence beyond the writings of Gardner himself for the ritual, which would make sense because it's not going to be publicised. They're going to send out a Facebook invite, are they? Oh, we're doing a ritual to stop Britain being invaded. You should all come along. We're all going to get nude and fuck. This is a coven. This is a group of people who've been doing this in private, in secret, for years.
So do they practice it on their own in their homes as well as the sort of...
There'd be certain rituals they would do in the home. Even lighting oils, candles, certain herbs, things like that. But for the big things, you have to channel your collective will.
Did they take anything before they did the dancing and chanting?
Viagra?
I was thinking about mind-altering substances.
Well, that's an interesting...
Magic mushrooms. They're going to do that shit, aren't they? Have a religious experience and then a shared delusion.
Well, it's not a delusion. They're projecting their thoughts through the code.
I don't believe you can do that.
We were okay with remote viewing. What's the difference?
I wasn't alright with it.
You said there's something to it.
I said it's something to look into.
I don't know, man. I'm kind of... I'm almost on board for magic with a K.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. However, the events he described have become important legends amongst modern Wiccans, says Professor Sabrina Maglico, of an anthropologist and folklorist at California State University, Northridge, and an initiated Gardnerian witch. She says that frankly she doesn't know if the Cone of Power ritual really occurred, because, you know, as a folklorist she's more interested in the narratives, but, you know, they tell us what people want to be true, even if the stories are not 100%, which, as folklore goes, is fairly accurate, I'd say.
Yeah.
Based on a kernel of truth, probably, somewhere.
Yeah. Whether or not the ritual happened, it tells us something about what those witches wanted to be true. It's about the power of witches to do something that is nearly impossible, and it's also about the patriotism of these witches. It also talks about the power of witchcraft to channel the energies of the earth, of nature, through their bodies to create the Cone of Power.
I think if they believe in it and they're not hurting anybody, it's...
Why don't they challenge
Crack on.
channel to the Prime Minister to allow Wicca to be taught in all the schools, or do it to prominent people in government? Or
You see, before Gardner wrote that book, nothing was written down, was it? It was all passed down, mother to daughter.
what I'm trying to say is they've got this power, and they can make the most dangerous man in the world, Adolf Hitler at the time, stop invading Britain. Can't they do any other stuff?
Such as...
Well, anything. Example I just
Be
gave.
suggestive, like you said, towards the Prime Minister to do X, Y or Z, you know, whatever they want, really.
I guess I can see that, but...
So every school's like Hogwarts.
No, I think more of a... You don't want...
You want to further your cause, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but you also
Like,
want...
fuck, we've got this power, let's all use it for
yeah,
good.
but you also want only trained initiates of that...
That's why you have schools.
What if we get a Voldemort? More people you get trained, the more likely you are to have a Voldemort, aren't you?
Yeah.
You keep this in the bloodlines, you're descended from ancient witches.
To the bloodlines.
It's
now,
this
is it?
country
You
knowledge.
can't just join this, like, you know.
You got to be.
You can join a Wiccan coven if you want to hunt
You're not
that
a true
out.
witch. You're a muggle.
Yeah. And you can learn the ways of and do the rituals described in that book. But this is like older, isn't it? This is a deeper, older. It's woven into the fabric of our land. This kind of thing. I think.
But it's like every religion.
No, because Christianity is boring as fuck.
I think it's petered
What
out,
about-
hasn't it? You know, there are still, like, you know.
There's thousands of other religions in the world.
We don't know what goes on in like little isolated communities in the country in terms of this stuff, or if there's people meet up in woods where no one goes in the deep dark parts of the Welsh valleys or something like that.
Yeah, but I'm not arguing that. I'm just arguing they're not doing anything. It's just make believe. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe they only get involved when the country's at stake.
What's the climate crisis got to do something about that?
Maybe they are. We just don't know about it.
But we're up, don't they?
Well, you'd think they'd like to, you know, being one with nature and...
Yeah.
I mean, they're a secretive bunch, these Wiccans.
I don't know. That's where I stand with it. Unless there's some real evidence.
I think...
Not just
being
what some
into-
guy wrote in a book. I'm not down with it.
Coming off the fence, I think something like this did happen. I can't see why it wouldn't.
No.
I think it's cool
my
as
argument
fuck.
is it made no difference whatsoever.
Well, it didn't invade. Chalk it up for a win. Same as Bonaparte, same as the Spanish Armada. Didn't win, didn't get here, chalk it up. I mean, obviously, certain other outside events influenced the final decision. You know, storms, the pluckiness of the Royal Navy in 1588, the might of it in 1805, and the Battle of Trafalgar, and then again the heroic resistance by the RAF in the Battle of Britain. And the fact we also still had a massive Royal Navy and the Germans didn't have a surface fleet.
Didn't work against the Romans, didn't work against the Vikings, didn't work against the Normans.
Maybe they had more powerful gods than us.
Oh, right.
Well, think of
But the people on the other side that were into the occult on the other side, they were praying harder.
as you see, we've got a spiritual Cold War
Like,
going.
Yeah, like, you know, like, and this, you know, both sides.
Oh, I like it.
pushing like this sort of invisible. Well, I don't know, invisible but like tangible, but like back and forth.
Maybe we weren't just. I mean, the Nazis loved the occult. They were really into it, and we'll get into that in a second. But maybe it was like, well, you know what? Maybe if there is something to that shit, we don't want to be left behind on it, do we?
No, but as a true scientist, I'd say I need evidence before I can believe.
Yeah, but it's not like we're throwing tens of millions of pounds into this as a secret weapon. We're just like, oh, go on, then do a ritual, see what happens. Build some more tanks, just in case.
I'd like some scientists to go and see these witches and try and verify what powers they have got and what they can do. That'd be fantastic. Do it. I'm all for it.
I like to think this leads us to a Hellboy style scenario.
But I bet if a scientist goes around, I want to see. I bet they become very defensive.
Yeah.
As will any religious person do when you challenge their beliefs.
Yeah.
Look at that documentary Religulous with Bill Maher when he goes around challenging Christians and Jews and people of the Islamic faith, and they're like, "You get the fuck out." He says something they don't like. Yeah, get the fuck out now.
Yeah.
You challenge someone's beliefs and they get very defensive. It's going to happen, especially if you got some scientist turning up in his lab coat with his beakers and his Bunsen burner, saying, "Okay, let's measure the effects of your cone of power." They're going to be, they're going to be pissed, aren't they? But like you walking into Catholic church during mass and going, "It's just biscuits and wine." Doesn't do anything. But you know what?
I'm not against anybody believing what they want to believe. They can. But I need proof before I can believe it. That's all it is. Pretty simple.
Well, I want to believe. So, Gardner wrote about Operation Cone of Power in 2 books about witchcraft in the 1950s. But questions about his version of events arose in the 1970s when they were challenged by Armando Crowley, a writer who claimed to be the son and magical heir of the famous British occultist and writer...
I'm magical heir!
I'm the magical heir! Watch me dance!
Fucking ego on this guy.
He was the magical heir of the famous British occultist and writer and self-proclaimed wickedest man in the world, Mr. Crowley. A little bit of Alistair Crowley. I point out from my own limited knowledge of Crowley, and he is a guy we'll come back and explain more in one day when I finish that book. I know that he had 3 daughters, of only one survived, I think. Unless this guy's born out of wedlock.
More than likely.
He never certainly admitted to having a son. Let's put it that way. Armando Crowley wrote the ritual described by Gardner as a fiction based on a real wartime ritual carried out by his father, which he had witnessed as a boy. He claimed this ritual, dubbed Operation Mistletoe, had taken place in the Ashdown Forest in Sussex in early 1941, with a detachment of Canadian now, I've been reading too much Warhammer 40,000, Canadian soldiers dressed in wizardly robes and a dummy in a Nazi uniform seated on a throne. That's very Crowley-ish. Yeah. That's more Crowley-ish. That's some proper...
He more Crowley to be sodomised the Canadian soldiers afterwards.
He probably sodomised the dummy, or he was sodomised in turn by the Canadian soldiers. He did love some butt sex.
He certainly wasn't sodomy-free.
No, he was not. But then again, that's to get the magic, you see. To get the greater magic, you have to be degraded. Towards the end of life, he was eating shit. To get the greater power, because that's...
Going too far then, ain't you?
Yeah.
When you're eating shit, it's time to call it a day. That's my rule.
We did an episode...
It involves the shit eating. You've
gone too far. We'll come back to Crowley one day. We did an episode on him when we were very new and weren't very good at this. And I want to go back and with a bit more knowledge and revisit that episode.
Well, we didn't do an episode on him. He featured in the same...
He featured very heavily in it.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
So, now, in yet another version of Operation Mistletoe, related by author Richard Spence in his 2008 book, Secret Agent 666, Alistair Crowley, British Intelligence and the Occult, the British authorities only wanted the superstitious Nazi leaders to learn that they were being attacked by British magic.
That makes more sense.
But after the plan was dropped, Crowley went ahead on his own anyway. And there is some evidence that Crowley wrote to Churchill offering his services as well as naval intelligence, and he never received a reply. But knowing Crowley and knowing that man's own self-importance, he'd go ahead and damn well do it anyway.
Yeah.
That's just propaganda, isn't it? To get the the Nazis scared,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it? Or get them on the back foot.
Yeah. Now, Armando Crowley claimed that one result of his father's magical attack on the Third Reich was the bizarre episode in 1941 when the Nazi deputy leader Rudolf Hess made an unexpected solo flight across the North Sea in a Messerschmitt fighter plane.
I never knew about this until recently.
Right.
Did you know?
No.
Yeah, this is actually really mental, and I'll go into a little bit in a second once I've read this little bit. He bailed out by parachute over Scotland because he had lost his way and ran out of fuel. He made the journey in the misguided belief that he could single-handedly convince the British to make peace with Germany, but he ended up in prison until he died in 1987. Now, 1941, Britain's like holding its own here. It's a Battle of Britain's at its peak. Britain's getting bombed daily, and Churchill's kind of keeping us in the war with his oratory. You know, we'll fight them on the beaches, the landing fields. We'll never give up. We'll never surrender. The V symbol, allegedly, I read today, was actually brought up by Crowley to counter the swastika. Symbols have power.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, they do. I believe that.
V for victory.
Only because what people put towards it.
Yeah.
Their own beliefs they put, or the beliefs that are put upon them.
Actually, it's interesting. The Nazi swastika isn't the true representation of the swastika. There's the Hindu swastika, which is the very sacred symbol in their religion, and that is tilted round counterclockwise. That was then believed to attract the powers of good. Hitler and his art team had it rotated to the right, setting it square on, which then attracted the more insidious powers, the darker powers. So, if you've got Crowley...
I don't believe that, I just believe that...
I'm just telling you what I read.
I know, okay, yeah, go on then.
Now, so they're into that, and if you think, well, we're missing a trick here, but Aleister Crowley, you know what? You know, he wants to help out. He's the most famous occultist and wizard on the planet, and he just so happens to be British. It's interesting.
And he turned him down, Churchill.
Apparently there was no record of them ever replying, but Crowley's own self-importance, I kind of believe with this guy, who I think he'd have gone ahead and done it anyway. Whether this guy, Armando, is his son or not, that's up for debate, and probably not. But he could have been there as a kid of one of the followers. Maybe he took the name Crowley after saying that he'd been made the magical heir. Who knows? Then he put his wizard's hat on and scampered away into the woods. So that apparently was automated by Crowley, this attack, because Hess was very much into the occult. He was really into it. He was, in fact, the biggest believer on the Nazi team.
Right.
So
maybe you thought, they got Crowley.
that was it. Maybe they thought, well, maybe I can reach some kind of understanding with him. He actually went to meet a Scottish Earl, who he believed was sympathetic, who he'd known before the war. But apparently that was also just a plant. This guy was like, no, I don't fucking want anything to do with him. He's a Nazi now. So he
was mad.
It was mad. He literally just, on his own accord, he didn't tell anybody. He didn't tell Hitler, Himmler, Goering. Just got in his fighter plane, flew across the North Sea, parachuted over Scotland in the hope of meeting this Earl. And he was arrested by soldiers and locked up for the rest of the war. And then he went to Spandau prison just outside Berlin. I've been there. It's just a castle, basically. It's a medieval castle.
Do they perform ballet there?
They do not, but I'd imagine that's where they got the name from. And he stayed there until 1987 when he died in mysterious circumstances. Could have been suicide, could have been murder. No one's quite sure.
But it isn't so mad that he wanted us to become allies. Because Hitler even admitted himself that Britain's the natural ally of the Nazis.
Well, of course. I mean, we had the world and they had Europe. Let's work together.
I meant more sort of our fascist leanings.
Oh, well, in all fairness, a lot of the aristocracy and ruling classes didn't think Hitler was such a bad chap.
Yeah.
Because he had certain views against the poor that they also shared. Eugenics, for one, where people who were considered weak or not as mentally able should be put to sleep, basically. So they did share some similar views, but in the end, the majority of them chose their country over their ideals, let's say.
In the end, I
In
guess.
the end. Few didn't. Oswald Mosley was obviously the leader of the British Fascist Party. His son went on to own the Daily Mail. I think that says everything. Yeah, became a media magnate. Interesting, isn't it? When you think how far this country has slipped to the right over time.
Yep.
And you've got a son of an ex-Nazi and in fact, you know what, the British Union of Fascists, which Mosley was a part of, are actually making a little bit of a comeback. Their flag hadn't been seen around in public for years until the anti-COVID lockdown rallies in Trafalgar Square, which were dispersed. So they've obviously nailed their flag to the mast of conspiracy nowadays to get new members. Sad. Back to the story. Heselton and the British historian Ronald Hutton of Bristol University, who has written extensively on the history of the neo-pagan movement, are dismissive of Armando Crowley's claims. Hutton's research, described in his History of Modern Witchcraft, The Triumph of the Moon, wow, better than The Triumph of the Will, eh Mike? Has found that the very detailed diaries Crowley wrote throughout his life make no mention at all of his supposed son and trainee magician, and no mention of any wartime activities or rituals. Although, as I said earlier, Crowley wrote to Britain's Naval Intelligence Division in 1939, 2 weeks after the German invasion of Poland, but he was never offered a job. There is there's no evidence that Armando Crowley had any genuine connection to Aleister Crowley at all. It's unproven in its entirety. Hutton, the professor, goes on to say that it's not possible to know if Operation Cone of Power took place the way that Gardner described it, but he notes that Gardner's account of Operation Cone of Power at least provided an opportunity to show Gardner's patriotism when he was writing about the ritual in the 50s, a time when neo-pagan witchcraft was routinely associated in the British media with stories of Satanism and ritual murder. So if it didn't happen, then it was a wonderful way of trying to get people to regard Wiccans as being patriotic and fellow citizens instead of being some kind of enemy of society, he says, which I suppose is a valid point. You say I'm a Wiccan, oh my God, you're sacrificing children. You're worshipping Baphomet, you've got the pentagram. It's like, nah, dude, we're just doing cones of power, man. We're taking mushrooms and fucking in the woods and doing cones of power. Do you want to join?
Yeah, we're not drinking goat's blood or anything.
Nah, well, not every day.
Behold my cone of power.
I'll show you my cone of power if you come in the woods with me. Heselton believes the Operation Cone of Power probably did take place as Gardner describes, because such magical ceremonies would have been an important expression of belief for the community of witches who have come to be known as the New Forest Coven. Which I guess is also a valid point. I think it's largely true, he says. In fact, I turn the question on its head and reply that I think it's extremely unlikely that something like this would not have happened. He points out the group that Gardner was involved with, the so-called New Forest Coven of Witches, were mostly too old to join the armed military or civil defence forces, but were motivated by the time to take part in the defence of their country however it could be achieved. So they used what skills they believed they had, which were magical ones, he says. An Operation Cone of Power was just the sort of thing they would have done.
Yeah, I don't dispute that.
I think it went on, but whether it had an impact.
I'm not saying it had an impact, but I do think that it's really fucking cool that not only that they think it had an impact, but also as a really cool thing to do. I just think it's awesome. I don't know, it speaks to something inside you. Like, it's like Drake's drum. If Britain's ever going to be invaded, bang Drake's drum and he will return from his watery grave and scour the enemy from the seas. It's like if we're ever in the shit, King Arthur's meant to rock up again and save the land. I love mythology like that. And as times are desperate, you can't underestimate how desperate these times were. The invasion was thought to be coming any day. And you know what? If all you have got is you think you can do magic in the woods naked and then fuck, and you think you can do something for your country, yeah, why the fuck not?
Happy days.
Yeah.
And it's, let's face it, it's a nice little distraction from how shit things are, because you're on rationing, you can't get petrol, you know, you've probably got a shit ton of evacuation kids living in your house.
War for mushrooms and orgies in the woods.
Yeah, bit of nettle tea, and because they'd be into foraging and all sorts, wouldn't they?
Exactly. But I like the idea that there is a particular brand of British magic that maybe goes all the way back. I mean, the Romans wiped out the British religion because obviously its connotations with British nationalism, which was therefore anti-Roman, but also because they actually kind of feared it a little bit because it was weird. I mean, there was human sacrifice back in the day.
Well,
back.
wouldn't they?
They feared it. They feared that maybe our gods aren't quite as good as theirs.
They knew less than we did back then, didn't they?
Well, of course, yeah, that's the belief. Every army back then fought with superstition on its shoulder. If we think their gods are better than ours, then, or potentially more powerful, then we're going to be a bit wary, aren't we? And the Celts would have been terrifying, coated in all that woad, all that blue paint, screaming at you, they're taller than you, big beards, 6-foot swords, shit your pants. You're going to shit your tunic if you're Roman. No, I like the fact that you can trace that all the way back to Drake, to Napoleon, that it's been done before, that people have tried to influence the world around them with that, and I like it. It speaks to me.
Well, if it's for good. If they try to do it for bad, then that's not good, is it?
The thing about then you begin to black magic, which is a completely different thing. But most Wiccans stay on the white side of magic, or at least go grey occasionally, but black magic is something they're not encouraged to do, and a lot of them don't, from what I've read. Some people practice black magic, but it's meant to be harmful to you. It can rebound, apparently.
I like the thought of dancing in the woods, but it's just a little bit too close to religion for me.
So you're down for the orgy?
Yeah, but it's a little bit too close to religion, believing in something that is not tangible, not there.
I'm not saying it's not possible,
yeah,
but I'm just saying it's probably highly unlikely.
So can we agree on it was probably done, or something similar was done?
Yeah, something.
Yeah, I think I think I'd put that at 95% chance.
I've got a friend that dances around her garden for the full moon, and she celebrates the summer solstice and the winter solstice, and is really sort of in tune with all that, and happy days.
Well, it is the old religion. I mean, it predates Christianity getting here.
Yeah.
And I wish I could be more spiritual, but I can't. But
you could argue, the Christians would argue, he didn't cross the water. Hitler didn't cross the water because we prayed.
That's another valid point. Yeah.
Every night I got down on my knees and I prayed to God, and
But then every side claims they've got God on it.
Exactly.
Doesn't it? Every side always says the God's on our side. Well, no one's claiming the Wiccan deities. Get them on board.
So that's why it's just too close to religion for me,
Yeah, I agree.
I think this guy Garner turned it into a religion, and so that anyone could read about it and become a Wiccan if they wanted to. But before he got a hold of it, it was very much something that was kept within specific groups in certain localities. It's like Bob might be the butcher, but then on a full moon he's out there cutting mistletoe for the fucking fire in the woods that he has with the candle maker, and then they all get drunk and fuck and do it. And it's something that's been handed down, a secret history of their own family in a way. It's handed down from father to son or mother to daughter. But now obviously then he basically gave it he made it mainstream, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yep.
Got it out there, talked about, packaged it in a book.
That's it. And if in that book you're like, yeah, by the way, you thinking about joining this religion? We stopped Hitler. We stopped Hitler invading. We did a ritual and we stopped Hitler invading. And I definitely think Crowley did something. Just because he wouldn't be able to resist.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be able to resist dabbling. He actually took some blame for the First World War starting, Crowley.
Did he?
He did. He said there was a ritual that went wrong.
Arrogance, isn't it?
I know, it's fantastic. I can't remember exactly, come back to me, I'll find out what it is. But yeah, he did some ritual wrong. Someone jizzed before they should have, or didn't. No, they didn't jizz at all. They didn't jizz, and ritual was unable to be completed, and it caused the First World War. Something along those lines. I'll check it.
It's inverted it. sucked in jizz through his penis.
And started a war.
And on that note...
Well, we haven't quite finished.
Oh, yes.
The real witches that...
The real night
Stop
witches,
the
you can
Nazis.
take this one.
Meet the night witches, the daring female pilots who bombed Nazis by night.
It's pretty metal. Night witches!
They flew under the cover of darkness in bare bones plywood biplanes. They braved bullets and frostbite in the air while battling scepticism and sexual harassment on the ground. They were feared and hated so much by the Nazis that any German airman who downed one was automatically awarded the prestigious Iron Cross medal.
It depends on what class of Iron Cross you're getting. There's a couple of classes, and then you got the oak leaf clusters and the laurel wreath, if you was really good. Sorry.
All told, the pioneering all-female 588th Night Bomber Regiment dropped more than 23,000 tons of bombs on Nazi targets, and in doing so they became a crucial Soviet asset in winning World War II.
I'm just trying to see if I can remember how much a biplane can carry in terms of bombs, because it's probably not a lot. Is it?
No.
Maybe 50-pound bombs?
What, have they run out of pilots?
Yeah?
Yeah, pretty much. They had female snipers, female soldiers, the Russians. It was everyone getting in defend with Russia, basically. Can you carry a rifle? Fantastic, get over here.
The Germans nicknamed them the Nachthexen,
Mm.
or Night Witches.
I think it sounds better in German, the Nachthexen.
Yeah, because
Watch out for the Nachthexen!
because the whooshing sound their wooden planes made resembled that of a sweeping broom. This sound was the only warning the Germans had. The planes were too small to show up on radar or infrared locators. They never used radios or radio locators, couldn't pick them up either, they were basically ghosts.
Yeah, they would be.
Oh,
Yeah. Fantastic, I love it.
so it proper dropped all the tech and just let them,
Yeah, pretty much. Also, they'd have probably been the only planes that were left at one point.
Well, we've got these wooden planes.
And because they're females, they were like, you can't have the good ones we have got left. You can have these shitty ones that are paper and string.
Using female bombardiers wasn't a first choice.
Sorry, I get to correct you for once.
Bombardiers.
Bombardier.
Yes. While women had been previously barred from combat, the pressure of an encroaching enemy gave Soviet leaders a reason to rethink the policy. Adolf Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, his massive invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941. By the fall, the Germans were pressing on Moscow. Leningrad was under siege, and the Red Army was struggling. The Soviets were desperate.
Of course they were. The Germans were like within sight of Moscow. The wind trying to kicked in, they'd have taken it. And the 50 Siberian divisions who rocked up also helped. Yeah, they were ready to go. Stalin, everyone was ready to bug out. They had the train loaded.
The squadron was the brainchild of Marina Raskova, known as the Soviet Amelia Earhart.
Ah,
Famous not only as the first female navigator in the Soviet Air Force, but also for her many long-distance flight records.
why don't we know about her as much?
It's the enemy, innit?
You know, she's a female pioneer. No, Amelia Earhart, she crashed, she failed.
Yeah.
Let's remember her.
She became the Night Witches and just killed the Nazis.
Yeah, she became a fucking night witch and killed Nazis. This woman's a badass. Oh, this is Ace as well. That's fucking... Read the next bit.
She received letters from women all across the Soviet Union wanting to join the World War II war effort. While they'd been allowed to participate in support roles, there were many who wanted to be gunners and pilots flying on their own. Many had lost brothers or sweethearts or had seen their homes and villages ravaged. Seeing an opportunity, Raskova petitioned Soviet dictator Stalin to let her form an all-female fighting squadron.
So like they killed my husband, they killed my brother, they killed my fiance. I want to kill Germans now, and I want to fly a plane and do it, and come out of the sky like a night witch. That is fucking badass.
You find it hard to say no, with that letter off them and petition and whatnot.
Well, that's it, and also you're like, well, looks good for me. It's extra bodies for the grinder, isn't it?
Yeah.
The military, unprepared for women pilots, offered them meagre resources. Flyers received hand-me-down uniforms from male soldiers, including oversized boots. They had to tear up their bedding and stuff them in their boots to get them to fit.
Oh, Jesus.
The equipment wasn't much better. The military provided them with outdated Polikarpov Po-2 biplanes, 1920s crop dusters
Oh,
that
Jesus.
have been used as training vehicles. These light two-seater open cockpit planes were never meant for combat. It was like a coffin with wings.
Yeah.
Made out of plywood with canvas pulled over, the aircraft offered virtually no protection from the elements. Flying at night, pilots endured freezing temperatures, wind and frostbite. In the harsh Soviet winters, the planes became so cold, just touching them would rip off bare skin.
Fuck me. So imagine flying that in the middle of the Soviet winter. You're just covered in fur, aren't you? Basically, you know, your Russian little furry hat, your flying jacket, your goggles, scarf. No radio, so if you get lost, you're fucked.
Yeah.
You'd have a compass, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
to
but
get
if
where,
you're
that'd
flying,
be about it, wouldn't
but
it?
if you get a whiteout,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, you only got to rely on instruments, haven't you? And it's difficult. Lots of pilots get lost.
Yeah, the pilots also lacked luxury items their male counterparts enjoyed. Instead of parachutes, which are too heavy to carry,
Oh my god.
radar guns and radios, they were forced to use more rudimentary tools such as rulers, stopwatches, flashlights, pencils, maps and compasses.
So they're actually plotting their course on a map by hand, using the compass on. Oh Jesus!
But there were an upside to the older aircraft. Their maximum speed was slower than the stall speed. What's that, Ben?
If you go too slow in a propeller-driven fighter, the engine will conk out.
Ah. So the maximum speed was slower than
So
the stall speed of the Nazis.
So as you're flying along, the Nazis are going to be.
They're going to go straight past you.
And
Yeah.
they won't be able to slow down
Yeah.
or to sort of.
The wooden planes could manoeuvre faster than the enemy,
Yeah.
making them hard to target.
Which is actually why the British on their aircraft carriers used a Swordfish torpedo bomber, because they were biplanes. They could go about 80 miles an hour, but the German gunners couldn't actually hit them because their guns were radar controlled.
Yeah.
They couldn't pick them up.
There's a massive downside though. When coming under enemy fire, pilots had to duck by
Yeah.
sending their planes into dives. Almost none of the planes carried defence ammunition. If they happened to be hit by tracer bullets, I don't know what they are.
They ignite so you can see where you're aiming.
Their wooden planes would burst into flames. No parachute.
You're dead. In that scenario, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
And they could only carry 2 bombs at a time, one under each wing. They'd send up 42-person crews a night.
That's
We'd
full-
execute between 8 and 18 missions a night, flying back to rearm between runs.
Obviously, the weight of the bombs forced them to fly at lower altitudes, making them a much easier target, hence night only. So they could be coming in like a couple of 100 feet above the ground, which is nothing. I mean, but the thing is with those aircraft, if you don't get hit by a tracer round, you're just punching holes in paper. Like when the British, the Swordfish attacked the Bismarck, one plane come back with 127 holes in it. Still made it home. They could take some punishment if they were getting orders with machine gun fire at them, and you were very lucky. But
Yeah. There were 12 commandments the night which followed.
ooh,
Their first was to be proud you're a woman.
ah,
Fair play. Killing Germans was their job, but in their downtime the heroic flyers still did needlework, patchwork, decorated their planes and danced. They even put the pencils they used for navigation to double duty as eyeliner.
oh wow.
Amazing.
I wonder what they did their planes up like.
Altogether, these daredevil heroines flew more than 30,000 missions in total, about 800 per pilot and navigator. They lost a total of 30 pilots, and 24 of the flyers were awarded the title Hero of the Soviet Union.
You know what? That's actually a very good casualty rate for a Soviet
Yeah.
Soviet air unit made up of those planes.
Yeah.
I mean, 800 missions, 800 pilots, and they lost 30. Okay, now US and British bomber crews are losing getting a couple of hundred guys a day or a night. They had a great fucking record.
Despite being the most highly decorated unit in the Soviet Air Force during the war, the Night Witches Regiment was disbanded 6 months after the end of World War II. And when it came to the big Victory Day parade in Moscow, they weren't included, because it was decided their planes were too slow.
Yeah, it would take an all day for that to get over, wouldn't it?
Because it was decided. What?
They couldn't
They
do the
weren't
Victory flyover because the planes are too slow and not...
Well, why didn't they just have them in a march?
Yeah.
Or in
Yeah. It's true. And they're going to get like some hero submarine crew to drive their U-boat down a fucking street and through Red Square, are they?
No, so they should all just be like marching down with the with the guys, shouldn't they?
They should. But still, badasses and real night witches who fought Nazis.
Yep.
Although I like to think that, The British ones did too.
Yeah, I think they did a bit more than the cone of power myself, don't you?
Well, it depends on your viewpoint is, Mike. I mean, Hitler never invaded, did he?
They invaded the Soviets.
He invaded the Soviets instead of they stopped him.
Yeah. The real witches stopped him. The night witches. What was the German?
Oh, Nachthexen.
Nachthexen.
Love it. Right, so I think that's it for that. We got any fucked up facts? Or?
Yeah, can do.
Alright, let's end the show on some fucked up facts.
Can we have a theme tune, please?
Facts, fucked up facts, facts.
Thank you.
Facts.
You still going?
Facts.
Oh,
There we
fuck
go.
me.
There we go.
The UK is facing a shortage of garden gnomes.
Oh no!
I hate my neighbour's garden gnomes.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, they just don't like gnomes. After a while, the rain gets them and they look all scabby and...
Yeah, I'll give you that. I like the stone stuff you get now, though. I mean, in my house, you've got a stone Mandalorian and a stone Hulk.
Oh, that's quite cool. That sounds...
They're fun, and they're quite sort of chunky and weighty.
Are they painted up or...
No, they just left the stone.
Yeah, classy.
So they're pretty cool, but gnomes, yeah. And everyone has them fucking ones they think are funny, whereas like they're a bit rude. Like one's got his dick out or something, you know.
I've seen the one bending over.
Yeah.
I've seen the one with his willy out.
You can see his arse, and it's like, you think that's funny, do you?
If I was super rich though, I'd have a fountain with a guy pissing. Why not?
Everyone has that if you're rich. I'd have it with me
Yeah.
pissing.
Remember the One Foot in the Grave episode when he ordered a garden gnome? He got that many. He was just covering.
Oh yeah,
his whole lawn in his house. It's infested with garden gnomes.
That's right. They used to be a big thing, didn't they? I don't know if people have them now. There's better fucking garden ornaments in there at the end of the day.
Everyone's moved on to fairy gardens anyway.
Have they?
Yeah, little fairy gardens. You know, they make little chairs, tables, and all sorts.
Oh,
You
for fuck's sake.
Set it up, and you put some moss here. And
Surprised you haven't done that, Ben.
Yeah,
How much you like the fairies?
I do. I'm a bit of a believer in the fairy folk, yeah.
They get little doors, and they nail them
fairy
to,
doors.
to trees, and they live in the tree, obviously.
Well, obviously.
Better than the gnomes.
Yeah.
Yeah, gnomes can be quite evil. I think it's different fairies. I mean, they might steal your baby, turn it into a changeling and give it you back. Who knows? Never give the fae folk your real name.
Must have done it a lot round Dawn and then all the kids are like trolls. Do you want to know who shared your love of gardening, Claire?
Go on.
Osama bin Laden.
Does he?
Yeah.
Just goes to show that all gardeners are evil, doesn't it, Claire?
Is it?
Yeah.
He was particularly obsessed with growing big sunflowers, and he thought he deserved to be in the Guinness Book of World Records.
How tall was his biggest
It doesn't
sunflower?
Now I want to know, but
I can beat that.
he should have entered himself in the Great Dorley Parish Council's sunflower growing competition.
When's that? Is it
Well, I got
going
sent. I think he's been underway for a little bit. To be fair, I got sent some seeds a while back. But I never got around to planting them.
I'm going to turn
He's getting them.
evil.
Ooh, sunflower seeds.
Yeah, I've got some big sunflowers at the moment.
Well, I'm sure the son's very grateful.
I bet they're bigger than Osama bin Laden's.
Let's hope so. Otherwise, we just lost. We just lost the war on terror if Claire's sunflowers aren't as big as Osama bin Laden's.
In 15th century Europe, glasses were so unusual, some wearers were suspected of being in league with the devil.
Doesn't surprise me. It's 15th century fucking England. Or Europe.
If you wore glasses.
Mm-hmm. Well, think about it. The telescopes, like the first sort of telescopes, like Islamic Caliphate had that kind of thing. They were actually a lot more scientifically advanced than we were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, they had telescopes or primitive telescopes, and we didn't. So I suppose if you've got the tech to sort of, or the money to go over and get some, or have some made and sent to you, then I suppose no one's seen them. They're like, oh my god, he's in league with the devil, he has 4 eyes. You know?
Well, they put them on and it just makes their eyes like...
You got to buy bubbles.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't have been to his prescription, it'd just been a standard piece of glass, wouldn't they? They wouldn't.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have to go to the Middle East to see an optometrist.
Speaking of chickens, which we were talking about earlier, was that off air?
I think it was. Chickens stink, by the way, if you live next to them.
In 1474, the Swiss city of Basel tried and executed a cockerel for laying an egg.
A cockerel? Cockerels can't lay eggs?
I know, yeah.
Well, it could if it was a transgender, if it identified as a
maybe it was
cockerel.
a hermaphrodite.
Yeah.
It's possible, isn't it?
Freak of nature.
Yeah.
Or a hen who wanted to be a cockerel.
Yeah. Anyway, they executed it.
Wow.
Authorities feared the egg would hatch into a basilisk, a deadly chicken-serpent hybrid.
Well, you know what? That's a valid fear. I can see where they're coming from completely.
I totally incubated it and just checked it out. Why not?
No, because then you've unleashed a basilisk upon Switzerland.
Oh.
It could take over, it could kill the world. No one could stop a basilisk in that. What century was it?
15th.
Yeah.
Fuck it, all in.
All in or nothing. We've got a basilisk or we've got just a chicken. Whatever.
Yeah.
When the Swedish-Italian ballerina Marie Taglioni made her last appearance at St. Petersburg in 1842, a group of her fanatical fans bought her old shoes, cooked them in a special sauce and ate them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
Well, it's dedication.
What's all that about? Foot fetishes.
Yeah, probably. It's like those guys who were buying that internet chick's bathwater.
Yeah.
Yeah. One species of worm, Diploscapta pachys, has not had sex in about 18 million years, nearly as long as me.
Hey!
What? Is it asexual?
Yeah, must be.
Yeah.
Or they just live a really, really long time. Or it's just one worm that's left, frozen.
Like,
and
clone themselves or something.
Oh, they're worms. You cut one in half, two wiggle off. Not that I cut worms up or anything, just, you know, something that was told to me as a child. I don't kill worms. I like worms, they're alright.
Do you get your kids to blow out the candles on a birthday cake?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, every time.
Apparently, blowing out the candles on a birthday cake results in a 1400% increase in the number of bacteria on the surface of the cake.
Well, yeah, it's going to, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
If you think about it, yeah, it is. Yeah. Oh well. Yeah, blowing on any food is you know, it's going to spread bacteria on it, isn't it?
Yeah, my friend at Asda once told me, you know, like the fresh counter where you get your own, like, salad and, you know,
What you should do is put
pasta.
some cling film over the cake, then put the candles on.
Right,
So when he
okay.
blows the candles out, it goes into the cling film, you put it in the bin, don't you?
Yeah, but my cakes are all 3D and
Yeah, you're ruining you're ruining the art, aren't you?
Yeah.
And you know, what if a little bit of spark drips off onto the cream, torches the cake?
How am I going to, like, you know,
Yeah.
come along to my kid with it all wrapped in cling film? Happy birthday. Mum, what have you done? Well,
Why is the cake on fire, Mum?
there's 15,000
Now you'd have
microbes.
melted cling film in the cake.
You're going to spit all over the cake, so no, they wouldn't be impressed.
No. I suppose you could use a little fire extinguisher. Maybe. A tiny one, just with pure air in it. Well, no, that's not good.
Yeah, I'd rather
You don't want to shoot pure oxygen over a fire, do you?
Yeah, I'd rather have a few microbes over some burnt plastic on top of the cake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stick with the microbes. It toughens them up anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Exposes them
Eat
to
some
stuff.
mud. Eat some mud.
Yeah, go eat some mud, kids.
Or you could put the candles on a little cake, let him blow that out and give that to the dog.
Oh, he's making two cakes.
Little cake.
No, we can't do that.
God,
Can't give the dog cake either.
God, he's acting like there's a pandemic on
Yeah.
or something, isn't he?
God, he's like a germaphobe. Have you been creating your plane called the Spruce Goose? Gonna come in.
Get him.
That's a model, though. He's gonna be that beard's getting longer, his fingernails and someone else. He's just he's bottling his own urine next.
I haven't did it for months.
I'm drinking because
I'm
it's
drinking it. I
I'm
like the
drinking
taste.
because it's sterile.
I just like the taste.
Oh right, okay, whatever.
Blackadder in it.
Yes, it is. It is.
The editors, speaking of Blackadder, this was the Blackadder episode. Editors for the first Oxford English Dictionary
Yeah.
thought they would finish it in a decade. After 5 years, they were only up to the word ant.
Oh, fucking hell.
Ant.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's not very far. They really
You
weren't.
can imagine there's a lot of argument on the description, isn't there? People weighing in, going, oh, you know, you shouldn't include that bit.
That's not a verb, that's a pronoun.
But it took a month to decide on aardvark.
You think they would have just got like A, more people, or B, like split them up and say, go away and do some definitions.
Yeah.
Do as many as you can. That's not all, well, they just all sat there on the same one going, and,
Small intersect.
Yeah, really strong. No, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. The smell of freshly cut grass is a plant distress call.
Of course it is, they just cut their fucking heads off, they've just been decapitated, haven't they? And then there's people who go, ooh, I love the smell of freshly cut grass in the evening.
It's the screams of...
dying.
Screams of grass who've just been beheaded.
I love it, I do.
You sociopath.
Evil with my daffodils and my sunflowers.
Oh, but you've beheaded many a sunflower, haven't you?
Not yet.
You gonna do it with a sword or what?
I might do. They've got some chunky heads on them.
In 2009, a South African IT company showed that it was 25 times faster to send a 4GB SD card 50 miles by carrier pigeon than it was to use the country's national internet provider, Telkom.
Wow.
It's insane, isn't it?
50 gig.
4 gig.
4 gig.
It was quicker 50 miles by carrier pigeon.
Oh, Jesus
to
Christ.
transfer 4 gig over the internet.
Wow.
25 times faster. That's like pre-dial-up or something.
Oh, yeah. Jesus. Well, I haven't got... I mean, I thought dial-up was bad, but it took you like a good 30 seconds to get to the tits. Oof, that's terrible. Imagine trying to watch HD porn in that. Oh well, any more?
In 1973, Bhutan issued tiny playable vinyl records as postage stamps.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The stamps play folk songs and histories of the country.
Oh, it's even better.
That's
Educational yet functional.
I wonder if anyone's still got any.
I hope so. I hope they're still doing
There's a
it.
picture of one, so someone must. Does anyone know what a group of giraffes is called?
Giraffes.
I don't know.
A giraffes of giraffes.
A gaggle of giraffes.
It's a gaggle of geese, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Think about tall. Something tall.
Lank of giraffes. Lanky. Tall, I don't
Tall
know.
building.
A skyscraper of giraffes.
Not quite. A tower of giraffes.
Tower.
Oh.
Sort of makes sense.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. I didn't think about it. Okay.
But that's to describe a group.
Fucking weird though, aren't they, giraffes? You think about it, like, how on earth did anything evolve like that? I mean, their heart has to have a special chamber to pump the blood up their neck.
Is it?
Yeah.
Do you know why they got long necks?
To reach the...
No.
To eat birds.
No.
To eat birds. As they go by, don't eat them.
Oh, they're up there.
That's for mating. I think it evolved because of mating. When they're fighting for a mate, they smash each other in the neck.
They do, yeah. They use their necks as
The one with
weapons.
the longest neck.
Yeah, I guess.
And it's just got longer and
Yeah.
longer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about when they drink as well. This valve has to open up to allow to stop too much blood rushing to the head.
Yeah, because I suppose as they bend down,
Yeah.
there's a lot of blood that could
That's
come
all of
down
a sudden
that
just goes
neck
blump.
and go-
Apparently, guide dogs poo on command.
Oh, I've seen Max do that a few times. Go on, Max, go have a poo.
After the dinosaur killing meteorite struck Earth 65 million years ago, it rained glass in North America.
That's fucking ace, yeah, love that.
Wow.
Wouldn't want to be out in that. You definitely need some kind of hat.
We'll finish on this one. The Danish for mullet is Bundesliga Haar.
Ah, football hair.
Yeah, meaning the hair of a German football player.
The mullet's making a comeback. I've started seeing people around with mullets. I shit you not. I've seen like 2 in the last month at least, which is more than I've seen. It doesn't sound a lot, but it's more than I've seen for the last 10
Do
years.
they have the shaved sides?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the one guy on Clarkson's farm, so that makes 3 if I count that. The old boy who does the wall, Derek, he can't understand because he's so rural. He's like, literally even the subtitles don't know what he's saying.
Yeah.
He just goes indistinguishable. He's got a mullet, so that's 3 technically. I've seen 2 people in Dawley with mullets. They're making a comeback. I'm not going one. There's nothing worse than a bald mullet. I am not
Bombshell.
on that bombshell. Thank you for listening. Follow us on Facebook, Cutting the Bull in the Post-Truth Apocalypse. SoundCloud, Cutting the Bull in the PTA. We're on Spotify as well. YouTube, Apocalypse Bull. I've been Ben. Thanks for listening. Don't do the favour, don't join the cult, and always unleash your cone of power.
I'm Mike. Thanks for listening. Peace out, and may the force be with you.
And I'll be Claire. Keep an open mind, but not so open that it spills out your ears.
Mr. Crowley. Sorry.